Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Julie Moon, Senior Research Analyst at Finovate. We're here live at Finovate Fall. I'm joined by Sposito, Senior Analyst of Cybersecurity at Javalin Strategy and Research. Thank you for joining.
You said it right. Thanks for getting my last name right. I knew you could do it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about what you do at Javalin Strategy and Research.
So I think like the way that we think about information security is more as a business management problem inside of like financial services, right? So I'm not really paying attention to like the technical differentiators between like different technology vendors. What I'm really trying to focus on is like organizational tactics, right? That security and fraud teams are using to align themselves to the business and really enable, right? Like the innovation that has to take place in order for banks to meet their customers' needs.
Okay, great. So go ahead.
Oh, no. Like, so for instance, right? Like, there is this concept of a fusion center where there's increased collaboration between incident response teams, network defenders, and fraud teams, right? So they can all ingest threat intelligence and then better ingest and better action that threat intelligence throughout the enterprise, whether that's in a fraud function, a security function, or just to help another part of the business.
Mm-hmm. So we were talking earlier, and you mentioned. We talked a lot about friction earlier.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you help clients kind of minimize that while also maintaining security?
Yeah, so I think when most people think about friction, and let's talk about fraud for a second. When most people think about friction, they think about it like a dial. I'm going to turn on my friction, I'm going to lower my fraud loss. But I think that when we look at technologies, right, like that's not necessarily true, right? So like, let's just think about authentication, right? Authentication is almost like a technology that jumped the shark and is now a product concern rather than an information security or a fraud concern, right? So by adding additional assurance that my customer is actually who he or she says they are, right? Like I can actually, let them just sign into an application without using a password, right? So I think that's a place where security and fraud specifically, because customer authentication side of most financial services companies is a fraud management concern, right? Has completely aligned itself to the product conversation. So that stuff is like really fascinating to me. Right?
Yeah. Are there any other examples specifically of products like that?
Of products like that, I mean, outward facing, customer facing, not necessarily,
okay.
Right? But there are places when we talk about frontline product loss where cybersecurity teams are technically augmenting fraud management teams, right?
Okay.
So like using cyber threat intelligence to better inform fraud management and lower the chance of, say, gift card fraud or like money mule money mule networks, or the chance that that my customers will be caught up in romance scams, right? So that sort of collaboration function I think is really important, right? Both interbank, like if I have a global bank, and then between banks.
So talk to us a little bit about how you can help organizations train their end consumers on almost using or complying with these new security methods that pop up all the time.
So internally or externally?
Well, let's do both. Let's start with externally.
Okay, so externally, security is not the problem of the customer,
right?
Yeah. Like security is not the problem of the customer. I have to think about security, right, as kind of understanding everything about that customer, right, and giving them appropriate choices, right, or stepping them up in with an authentication challenge when, let's say, their device is compromised, right? So like I can't, as a financial institution or a financial technology provider, tell all of my customers they have to use two-factor authentication or they have to update their iPhone, right, without losing them. Yeah. Right? Like security cannot be an impediment to the business. It cannot be a blocker to the business. There's an older mindset where, at least within kind of lines of business, where security was looked like as the Department of No. And I think all modern security teams and fraud management teams now, they really want to be the Department of Yes. Right? Yeah. Like they're really trying to enable the business and be good consultants to the business and letting the business know, here is like consulting with the business to let them know here's the security trade-off like predicated on the business decision that you're making, and is that an appropriate amount of risk to sort of assume for our customers and to assume for our bottom line?
So security departments don't always have the ability to be the department of yes. So how do you find that balance of being the
Department of no between the Department of yes? I think security is really about controlling data, right? So it's either I have visibility into what my employees are doing, right? When we talk internally, it's either I have visibility into what employees are doing because employees are asking, hey, I want to use Office 365 remotely, right? So I can either enable that, or I can sort of, trust that they're going to get around it, right? Because no matter, like, if I make the walls high, right, there are always going to be employees that sort of jump over that wall and create unintended risk for me, right? So like I want to keep as a security executive, I want to be as in control of my company's information as possible. So it really doesn't behoove a security organization inside of a financial institution or financial technology provider with the means to say no. Right? You always want to be the department of yes. You always want to enable the business, right? Because if you don't enable the business will do something without you, and then it'll create unintended technology risk.
Yeah.
And that's really what this is. That's what the whole name of the game is, right? Yeah. It is unintended consequences.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I think we have time for one more question. I just want to talk to you a little bit about, as far as third-party provider solutions, what is something cool?
What is something cool? What is the coolest thing?
Yeah, what is the coolest thing?
Oh, so I actually think that the most interesting stuff that happens in security happens in services, right? So some of the organizational tactics that some of the large consulting firms, right, like Booz Allen Hamilton are sort of like bringing to market, right, in terms of like that idea of a fraud fusion center, going from like a team of teams to a single team for detection. That to me is the most interesting thing and the most exciting thing in security.
Okay, so not necessarily a product, but more of an idea then.
Yeah, it's more of an idea. I mean, security and I'll say this again, security is really about process, it's really about management, and more importantly, it's about culture, right? Security culture is really important, because if security can be at the core of the service that we deliver to our bank customers, right, then we win. Right? We are the most reliable service. We have the most speed to market. We are doing things in a way that really satisfies regulators.
Great. Well, Sposito, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for joining us as well.